I always tell people everyone needs a great mentor. Everyone should always be having a mentee so that you really, until you're teaching it, you don't necessarily know if you know it. And so everyone should have a great mentor. Everyone should have a great mentee. And then everybody needs someone that's in your corner cheering you along when you're down.
Tap into innovation at IAAPA Expo, the biggest industry event of the year.
Join us and other Attraction Pros in Orlando, Florida, November 18th to the 22nd to engage with the global community.
Learn from the experts, leave with new ideas, and turn your passion for the industry into new possibilities.
Register now using the link in the show notes to save up to 30%.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic.
All right. We got the is that a little whammy bar on there?
Exactly. Yes. That's what I was going for. Good catch. Good catch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anytime I think of a whammy bar, sorry, this is a total aside. Hard Rock Park. Right when you walk into the park, there were the bar that overlooked the lagoon was called the Whammy Bar.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah. So sad that more people didn't get to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I have a question for you.
All right.
Have you ever met anybody that just thinks so differently from you that sometimes you wonder how their brain works?
I was hearing somebody say yesterday there was a comedy special. It was Joe Rogan. I saw a bit from his new Netflix special, and he talked about having a conversation with Elon Musk. And I won't get into the details of that bit, but it exemplified that exact statement of thinking so differently and in totally different directions, and it made for entertaining comedy. I'll just say that.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think it can also make for very interesting podcast guests or just conversations in general. I know I've met a lot of people over the years that at first I'm just like, where did this come from? Like, I don't understand how their brain works. And then you get to talk to them a little bit more and you understand where they're coming from. And Michael Browning, who is the founder and CEO of Unleashed Brands, is one of those people. I truly appreciate how he does think differently than a lot of people. And I thought this when we first talked to him back on episode 91, back in, was it May of 2019? And I just thought he thinks so differently than so many attractions operators. And there's many, many brilliant people out there, not to take away from any of them, but I just think he brings a different sensibility to the space. And I just appreciated that. And it was great to kind of revisit that today.
You know what I think it is kind of this balance between he's so methodical thinking from the logistics and the numbers and the data and the science, and then really implementing it at the ground level and really fully understanding it holistically and how it makes sense and why this is good for business and why this is good for the guest and why this is good for the brand and why this brand is good for the other brand and how all of this works together, which is ultimately what led to Unleashed Brands. And he talked about consolidating fragmentation, which was really cool to talk about it. And he talked about how it hadn't been done too much in the location-based entertainment industry until COVID, when a lot of it started happening. And 2020 was around the time where this concept started. You mentioned we had him back in May 2019. We were talking about the growth and the rocket ship that is urban air. And we did get the opportunity to talk a lot about urban air in this episode, but urban air was just one of the things we talked about, as it's now part of this larger portfolio with these 7 brands. that are part of Unleash Brand's strategy of helping kids learn, play, and grow.
And what I found so fascinating was how he delineated the difference between the customer and the user. And I think a lot of times when we talk about demographics and we talk about who's coming to our parks, that at least in my experience, we don't separate them like that. Like he talks about the customer being the parents, and they have a certain set of needs, and they sell something to them specifically. And then the user are the children. And of course, they have a very different set of experiences and expectations for that audience. And I thought just looking at those two groups was a really fascinating way to look at business. And it made me think of different ways to look at my business and how other people can look at their businesses as well.
Yeah, 100%. Even, in the B2B space, we work with clients, but we also work with the employees of those clients. So I almost feel like it's kind of like an apples to apples type of comparison. So now I think after this interview, you and I are going to have a lot of gears turning and marinating on that and on everything that Michael talked about. But there have been some new attractions and experiences at Urban Air, and that's the adventure slides. And Michael walks us through what led to the implementation of these slides, what makes them a little bit different, what makes them unique, as well as really the methodical thinking that led to why it makes sense to fit in with the mix within Urban Air attractions.
So is it time to take a ride down that slide into this interview with Michael?
Well, let's do it, and let's unleash the brands. Hey, Michael, welcome back to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited to have you here again. How are you?
I am doing well. It seems like yesterday I was on, but then as we were talking about it leading into this, it's like, it's been a while.
Yeah. It's been a quick 5 years, 5+ years or so. And in reminiscing back to that last episode, that was episode 91. It aired in May of 2019. And I think lots has happened. Well, lots has happened in the entire world since then. But you're the star of the show here today. Get us caught up to speed. What's been going on with you since then?
Oh gosh, where to begin? I was trying to think back to May of 2019. At that time, we had the industry kind of up in storm because we were launching a membership program to all of our family entertainment centers, urban air adventure parks, and people are like, "That's crazy! How are you going to do something like that?" And now it seems like memberships are the jam everywhere, and so it's been a wild ride. So you think like memberships and led us through 2019. We were all rocking. I think we might have seen each other like FEC Summit in early 2020, and then all of a sudden everybody disappeared for a while. And so it's great to see you guys.
It's great to see you, Michael. And I'm so curious about some of the things that you've been up to. Obviously, Unleashed Brands is new. That was not part of our discussion the first time we talked. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of how that came about?
Well, really, it was something that was born out of being a parent. So I've got 3 kids. At the time in 2020, when we were all locked in our homes, I had a 10-year-old, I had a 7-year-old, and then I had a kid that was just born. And it was towards the end of the COVID cycle in Texas when they were saying, "Hey, you can come out of your homes now." Then my wife and I were sitting on the couch. And we were like, okay, well, what are we going to put the kids in? Like, it was kind of like a hard reset. If you had kids, you hadn't done anything but like just try to keep them learning and keep them engaged during COVID. And so now it was like all of a sudden, what are we going to enroll them in? And so my wife said, hey, you take Leighton and Bentley, I'll take Landry, and let's just start figuring out what we want to put them in. And so we were sitting on the couch and both of us had our phones out and we were just Googling like what can we do around us, right? My oldest is more of a liberal arts, fine arts kid. My middle child's more of the sporty. And then we like had this new kid and we were like, oh, we don't even know what he's into. Like, what do you put new kids into, right? And it was in that moment of frustration of like, man, this is really hard to find what's around you, sign up, know where to go, like what's right for your kids, that this light bulb went off. And I just heard this kind of tagline in my head, like where there is fragmentation, there's the opportunity for consolidation. My wife looked at me and was like, no, don't. And I was like, we got to chase this idea. And so we set out on a mission to partner with parents on this youth enrichment journey to help kids learn the basics of science, technology, engineering, and math, identify and grow in their skills and hobbies, and then just escape through play, and just be a kid.
So I think we need to go a little deeper into this quote here. Where there's fragmentation, there's opportunity for consolidation. Where did you first hear or learn about that? And then can you expand on it a little bit as well?
Yeah, you don't see it so much in location-based entertainment. I mean, I guess you just saw it recently with like Six Flags and that merger, or you might see it. You kind of started to see it with like when Callaway brought in Top Golf, or when Dave and Buster's and Main Event came together. But like back in 2020, there wasn't a lot of that in LBE. And so, though in franchising, there's a lot of consolidators, and which is the space that we're in. So you think restaurants, Yum Brands, right? You think of Inspire Brands. You think of Neighborly and Home Services. You think Driven Brands when you think about car services. And so I was thinking, man, there's a lot of great consolidators out there that help us with food, or hotels, Marriott, right? Or there's a lot of great consolidators out there that take care of what I believe are probably the second and third most important assets in a family, the home and the car. But there was nobody existed in the world that was consolidating and helping people take care of the number one asset in the family, which I believe is the kids. And so I set out to say, hey, I think there's nothing better to invest in that is recession resistant, that can move through cycles, than youth enrichment. And so I started to study Neighborly, Driven Brands, Inspire Brands, reached out, looked for mentors. Mike Bidwell at Neighborly, for example, was a mentor of mine, and just went down that path of buying the world's best brands in youth enrichment.
That is so cool. And, even thinking back to our first conversation, I've always been impressed by how your brain works. Not that I understand everything that happens in your head, but I just love the way that you approach business, because it's different than a lot of people will approach it, especially from the attraction space, if they've lived in the attraction space forever. So I'm curious, you talk about being in the franchise space. So what are some of those other ideas you get from there that has really helped kind of amplify Unleashed Brands?
Franchising is all about building the systems, the team, the processes, and the procedures to put your franchisees in a position to deliver the best guest experience possible, or the best product possible. So it's all about that flywheel and getting that going. And I think that's so applicable. Like in location-based entertainment, too many times we get stuck on the floor. And we love serving that guest, but like we feel like we're on this, what I call the tornado or vortex of always being on the floor, and not taking the time to build the systems and the processes to actually make the experience on the floor better and easier. And so what we always do is we're trying to help franchisees work on their business, but not necessarily have to work in their business, because we want them to own more than one business in our portfolio, and you can't be more than one place at a time. So that's the whole business model of franchising is really unique and really powerful, and I think that's why it's been so successful for us.
Michael, can you talk a little bit about, how the brands really intersect with each other? Because everything you're saying about franchises, with the systems and the teams and the processes, being able to apply that into multiple different business models. And I think we could really start with kind of the three pillars of Unleashed Brand as far as learn, play, and grow. So can you talk about really how all of those intersect, and how the systems can be applied individually within them will kind of grow in the whole?
Sure. I think first and foremost, and this dates all the way back to Urban Air, is that we really understand who our customer is. And so our customer are the parents, and our user is the kids. And so you really have to understand that really well, because if you don't, you'll chase trends, or you'll serve the wrong customer. And so the other thing is that we're a very why-based organization. We're not selling classes, camps, one-time events, celebrations, leagues. We sell courage, coordination, self-respect, respecting others that don't look and sound like you. And those types of things to our customer, which are the parents, is very valuable. To the kids, we make sure that it's a really awesome experience for them. So first and foremost, across all of our brands, that thread is we're experiential and we have the same customer and user throughout. So that allows us to really go deep from a data perspective to understand our consumer acquisition cost and then increase the lifetime value of that customer. But between the brands, what I always like to use is one of my favorite games as a kid, Candyland. Our job is to take a kid who, doesn't necessarily know what sport they like or needs help with math or reading or just needs a place to escape the everyday at Urban Air, and drop them onto that candy board of being a kid of life and help them navigate the game to winning. And so all of our brands, when you think about it, we can take a kid as young as 4 months old at the little gym, and we can grow them up. We can then hand the baton off to the next brand that takes them for another 3 to 5 years, then hand the baton off to the next brand, and then hand the baton off to the next brand until finally we're exiting those kids out of our ecosystem and off into college or the working world through our Class 101 brand. So our lifetime value, or just call it our tenure, is 4 months to 18 years, which allows us to spend a significant amount of money to acquire the customer because we deliver such excellent service, they stay.
And you've got them for such a long time, ideally, right? You think about the life cycle of a customer of another business, and it might be a couple of years, not the full life cycle of adolescence, from infancy to adolescence. And that really, I think, positions Unleashed Brands in a way to not only educate and entertain, but shape the future generations, which I think is really cool. I'm wondering, though, if we can step back just for a second, because what was going through my mind as you were talking about the customer and the user is that they're two different audiences. And how do you maybe focus on those two different audiences when they are so different? You've got the customer as the parent and the user as the child, but you've got to serve both of those audiences in very, very different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point, Matt. And when you think about Urban Air specifically, because I think it'll resonate with this audience, what the why behind Urban Air to parents is a place for their kids to go, a place for everyone in the minivan, right? So our customer on average is a parent who has a Honda Odyssey minivan, and in that minivan are 2.23 kids, and it spans from 12 to 4. And on those Monday banking holidays or on that Saturday, that parent's goal is to take them to a place where they can all have an amazing time, where when they're at that place, they can feed those kids. And when they leave that place, those kids pass out on the way home. That's what that parent, that customer is paying for. And now, once we get that parent in there with their kids because we're affordable and we provide value and they're not going to have to go through the Chick-fil-A line on the way home, then it becomes working on the experience that makes the kids ask their parents to come back that next time. And so our experience is the combination of our lighting, our sound, the attractions and its diversity, and how the team interacts with them and makes those kids feel. That's what creates repeatability in these venues. And so, but what's always important to understand is right now, especially in a tough macro environment, you have to bring value and affordability to these families who, after they go to the grocery store and after they pay for all these other things, they look at us and go, man, that Urban Air is a great place to go spend the discretionary dollars I have less of right now.
Michael, I'm wondering if we can actually go a little bit deeper into the specific brands themselves and kind of give maybe even some more context into this 4 month to 18 years and the 3 pillars of learn, play, and grow. And we know that Urban Air is a part of it, and it seems like it's on this level playing field, weighted equally distributed across all of them. You also mentioned Little Gym. When my son was about 18 months or so, we started taking him to Little Gym, and he absolutely loved it. And to your point, took an amazing nap, whether it was on the way home or whether it was, right when we got back home. So it was worth it. I don't know, from that alone, I would say. Tell us about how the other brands work in as well, and the other brands that are a part of the portfolio.
Yeah, and it's a great question, Josh. So first and foremost, our three pillars, we bring world-class brands into the family, into the platform that help kids learn the basics of science, technology, engineering, and math. So that's our learn pillar. Now, jumping over to our grow pillar, that helps kids identify and grow in their skills and hobbies, like things they didn't know they were good at or things they didn't know they liked. And then in the play pillar, it's brands that help kids escape the world. We say celebrate, escape, and connect with other kids. So learn, play, and grow. So in the learn pillar, we have Snapology, which is an amazing STEM brand. And so this was a brand that my daughter experienced a camp at during COVID. And it was my fine arts kid. And but this fine arts kid spent a week building a motion-based alarm that when her sister walked through the laser would go off. And I think this kid would tell you probably like coding and engineering was nerdy and not for her. She'd rather do theater and dance. But she was so locked in that I was like, man, I need to go talk to this founder. So Snapology's and Learn. Then we have Sylvan, which most people have heard of Sylvan. It's a 45-year-old brand that has the world's best tutoring curriculum around math and reading. They also do ACT and SAT prep. And what was happening was we have brand affinity across the platform. And so parents come to us and say, hey, man, like where can I take my kids after school? They need help with math and reading. And this was coming out of COVID when a lot of our kids took a step back. And so we went out and found Sylvan. Inside of Learn, we also have Class 101, which is the world's preeminent college planning company. So we help kids understand if you want to be this when you grow up, or you have this much to spend, or you like these types of things about college, here are the right colleges for you. This is more like a matchmaking service. And so we help kids earn merit-based scholarships to go to college. So it's phenomenal. So inside of Learn is Snapology, Sylvan, and Class 101. Now, jumping over to Grow, we have the Little Gym, which you mentioned, Josh, and it's phenomenal. And typically the kids in that brand, they start out early, right? It's a great place for first-time moms to go make friends. It's a great place for kids to really get their coordination, agility, learn to be coachable, learn to have patience, learn how to wait. And then from there, we have Premier Martial Arts, which is one of the largest martial arts companies in the United States. And then we also have an amazing brand in the Grow pillar called XP League, which I know in our industry, in the LBE industry, we've all been hearing about esports, and Six Flags put some esports venues in, and you see companies like Creative Works bringing like esports arenas to the table. Kids are gonna play games. And so the question is, can you take the gaming nature, the gaming environment, and put a traditional sports atmosphere around it and teach the kids not only can you be great at gaming, but you can be a great teammate, you can be coachable, you can have accountability, you can have good sportsmanship. And so we have the largest esports league inside of the Grow pillar. And then finally, Play. Right now, Urban Air sits in Play. And as we talked about back in 2019, and it's the largest active entertainment company out there and continuing to innovate and a great place for birthday parties, great place to get kids off a screen, great place for summer right now to beat the heat when it's 112 here in Dallas. And so those are the brands, 7 brands. We serve over 25 million kids a year across our pillars of Learn, Play, and Grow. And we're always looking to add more brands to the family.
Michael, I'm curious if we can talk about this from the consumer side of this and the consumer journey. So you talk about somebody that starts with a little gym. What's the messaging to them that you have all these other paths and resources that are, under Unleashed brands that we know of, but is that part of that messaging? Or maybe the question is, how do they know that all these are connected and they really can follow this up all the way till they're 18?
That's a great question, Matt. So all of our brands on their websites, it talks about how they're a part of the Unleashed Brands family. And then a few different times of year, we reach out to our consumers as Unleashed Brands. Because when we reach out to our consumers, we've been able to prove that we can take a family who has signed up for one of our brands and get them to sign up for 2.63 of our other brands. And what's so powerful about that is, as we call it cross-pollination, we've acquired that customer. Now we're using owned media channels that don't cost us any money to then get them to go and extend into other brands. it's a huge unlock in value for the company and for the consumer. So we do talk to them as Unleashed Brands. We're continuing to build the brand affinity, because when Josh takes his kid to the little gym and falls in love with the little gym and then finds out that the little gym is a part of the Unleashed Brands family, Josh automatically goes, oh, well, they treated me really well. They provided me great service. And so we have a leg up on getting Josh and his family to think about signing up for something else in our platform.
And yes, you do. You absolutely will, 100%. I do want to talk a little bit more about Urban Air, because I know there's a lot of exciting new information, new exciting experiences with it as well. But also want to talk about how it was ranked as the #1 entertainment franchise in Entrepreneur Magazine's annual Franchise 500 6 times in a row. How'd you achieve that top ranking, and what has led to consistently staying #1?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the team and our franchisees first and foremost, right? Like the team runs an amazing business, puts franchisees in a position to win so that they're delivering exceptional service. But to maintain that, it all comes down to creating an experience that's unique, creating an experience that is affordable, and just staying true to who we are and to that customer and that user, not chasing the various trends, but sticking to it, providing value. And we've just stayed to that core for a long period of time. Not that we're not innovating, but we're not changing who we are, because every year more kids are born. And we believe that kids don't need to wait to be great. They can be great kids today. And we're helping them be great through Urban Air by just pushing them to make friends, getting them off the couch, getting them off a screen. And that's very, very valuable to parents.
So you spoke a little bit about the innovation at Urban Air, and one of the things that's launched recently were the adventure slides. So could you talk a little bit about that and how that not only is a new attraction, but also how it still stays true to the Urban Air brand?
It's an active attraction. We've seen them around the country. It's not something necessarily. Sometimes we invent, and then sometimes we see things that are innovative that we like. And so we have unique designs. We have a unique way that our customers are riding on these slides. It's phenomenal, to be honest with you. It's something that, back in the day when Urban Air started as a trampoline park in 2011, I was the first to put a warrior course into our facilities and take out trampolines. And then I was the first to put in soft play. And then I was first to put in climbing walls, until finally we had really removed a lot of the trampolines out of our facilities and became an adventure park, really an indoor theme park. And so this is another aspect that we like, that we've tested, and adventure slides are really neat. Water slides have been around for a long time. You think about slides at the county fair have been around for a long time, but inside of this environment, within our mix of attractions, it's something that hasn't really been done before. And so we're excited about it.
Yeah. And you mentioned that the slide concept is, it's popping up, and, there's a number of other brands that are also implementing similar types of attractions. What makes Urban Airs unique?
Yeah, there's different designs for each of the different slides. There's different ways that the guest will traverse the slides. And so it can be different every time. Also, it's the environment, right? So we don't believe that any one standalone attraction can survive the test of time. And so if you think back to when we were kids, there were standalone laser tag facilities, standalone bowling alleys. And it's not that those don't exist anymore, but they don't dominate the market. And so we don't believe standalone slide parks will stand the test of time. It's all about diversity. It's all about giving the guest a different experience when they come in, being able to give them different sensations, right? That's why trampoline parks they exploded. But then what we started to realize is that people wanted to move around and have different physical experiences other than just bouncing up and down on a trampoline. So in the trampoline park days, yeah, you could put a dodgeball in their hand, or yeah, you could put a basketball in their hand, But what the customer told you is, I'm still on a trampoline. It still feels the same. So that's why we came in and disrupted the industry and said, well, we're going to pull out a ton of our trampolines and put in different things, go-karts, rock climbing walls, all of these different things to give them a truly different experience than just bouncing up and down. So slides are an awesome attraction for us. But again, slides by themselves, we don't believe is a concept that will span the test of time. As an attraction, circled around with all of our other attractions, our lighting, our sound, that works.
So, Michael, I'm wondering if we can shift gears here just a little bit, because you've talked about learn and grow a lot from the perspective of the brands, but I'm wondering if we can put that light on you just for a little bit, because I would imagine going from, Urban Air and that career path to now being the founder and CEO of a much larger organization with, specific brands and companies within that, had to be a bit of a learning curve for you as well. So I'm curious what that process and learning curve was for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a ton of great mentors in my life, right? And so whether it's people in my life, reading books, like I always tell people, everyone needs a great mentor. Everyone should always be having a mentee, so that you really, until you're teaching it, you don't necessarily know if you know it. And so everyone should have a great mentor. Everyone should have a great mentee. And then everybody needs someone that's in your corner cheering you along when you're down. And those are typically three separate different people. And so for me, it's been those voices in my life. So whether it was Jay Thomas from Six Flags that I learned from, or it was Ken May from Topgolf, or Chris Tonko from 7-Eleven, or Roland Hansen from Microsoft, the great mentors in my life have been something that I've always sought after, and always wanted to have a heart and a spirit that was coachable and teachable. And just, I always believe that we are on a constant pursuit of perfection to which we will never achieve. So we've got to get up every day and just get better. And it's when we have that approach that you can never be done. John Maxwell, who spoke at a conference for us a couple of years ago, we were in the green room, and I was like, John, how long are you going to do this? And he's like, well, he goes, in my journey, there is no finish line, because if there's a finish line, when you cross it, then you're finished. And so you've got to learn how to find joy along the way on this long journey that never ends. If you're always waiting for the mountaintop, you can wait a long time, especially as you have more success, the mountains get taller that you want to try to climb.
What is your method then of, I would say, focusing on that continuous improvement, knowing that there is no top of the mountain and there is no finish line?
It's always trying to learn from others. It's always trying to, it's reading, staying humble. For me, it's trying to never lose touch or be out of touch with the consumer, the customer. Especially in this kind of macro, like the people who are winning are the ones that really understand what the customer is going through, who their customer wins, and being able to relate to them. I mean, my wife still comes home and gripes about the price of eggs or toilet paper or what it costs to take the kids somewhere. And so no, like not losing touch and being out of sight of like reality is so important in this economy, this macro.
So how do you do that? How do you stay connected with all the different customers that you're serving?
Well, so my team is required to go spend time in our venues across all 7 brands on an annual basis. I think that's very important. We got to work the register, kind of an undercover boss style thing. We got to work the register. We got to work the floor, really understand. We spend a lot of time with our franchisees, our operators, so that we're not just sitting in this office and reading from theory or manuals. Like we need to deal with the things that our operators are dealing with, so that we can truly understand and create solutions for them.
And in addition to that, and this kind of goes back a little to the reason why Unleash Brands was created, is you are also the customer as well. So can you talk about that? Because that probably leads to two very, very different, but also very equal type of lessons learned of just being out there, not wearing your operator hat, but now I'm the consumer. Now you are trying to prioritize your family and your kids.
It's so true, Josh. Like I've got 3 kids, and the kids, don't care. I mean, they like what I do because it has some perks, right? To get to go to IAAPA Expo, and there's some perks, right? But at the end of the day, the kids don't care. And so, I've got my 9-year-old right now going, Dad, I want to go, to this rock climbing facility just around the highway behind me. And so I'll get to go there as a parent and see what I can learn from other great operators. I've got a kid who's 4 at the little gym right now, and he's in Super Beast. I've got another kid that's in premier martial arts. So, and then I still got to take my kids to school every morning at 6:30, right? And pick them up. Like my wife does the pickup. I can't take credit for that. But so I think it's, having being a parent, eating your own dog food and having to live the life of a parent really helps you understand like how it is, like, and that's why, like, for us, we have one piece of technology called Command Center that allows our consumers to sign up one time, create a profile for each of their kids, and then enroll their kids in any of our 7 brands. Why? Because my wife didn't want to have to create 7 different profiles to interact with 7 different brands in the platform. She's like, you got to figure out a way to have one login, one app, and make it easy, right? And that came out of being a parent.
So, Michael, you mentioned going around the corner to that other climbing wall place, and I'm curious, can you think of maybe an experience that you had where you had kind of an aha moment? I'm sure you've had a lot of these, but just like maybe one of those really specific aha moments that really led to some cool innovations or cool ideas within the brands?
Yeah, so I think I always think back to a few different things in my career. One, like I was a Discovery Zone kid. Like I loved it. And so I spent a lot of birthday parties there. There was one here in Dallas, just right by Northeast Mall. And so that always stuck with me, that experience. I loved it. I wasn't so much a video game kid, but I was definitely a Discovery Zone kid. The other thing is that I played a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon growing up, and I learned like how to make paths to different attractions, and then you needed trash cans and benches and pricing and all those things. So I honestly like learned a ton, and now my 12-year-old plays it so with me, which is awesome. I remember going to the rodeo, right? So like when we talk about slides, I remember going to the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo as a kid and riding down the wave slide in a potato sack. And so a lot of these things are coming back. Like slides aren't new, dry slides aren't new, but it's kind of nostalgic things that we got to do as kids. Like now we get to do it indoors. And so there's a lot of experiences. Like I loved laser tag as a kid, right? But I remembered that I always wished my parents could watch me play laser tag. So when we do laser tag, we do open laser tag. So that's an experience from when I was a kid, because I believe that there's value when parents can watch their kids having fun. And even if the parents don't play, that the kids can see that dad's watching and affirming that kid's doing well. There's value there. So we do open laser tag concepts, or we have windows, things like that. So I just think it's different experiences around the world that I've experienced, whether as a kid or as a parent, that I apply, right? I mean, there's nothing more annoying to parents than when they have a bad check-in process. It's like, why did I take the time to buy it online only to go stand in line for you to check me in? You're like, I did all that at the house. And COVID exacerbated that, right? Because we got everything delivered to us. There were no lines. We could consume Tiger King and all this other stuff on Netflix, right? With no waiting. And then we all come out and everyone's like, why is everyone so impatient? It's like, because we didn't have to wait for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So those things are big. COVID, it was like that QR codes just magically appeared during COVID, but we all have been using QR codes forever. But it's like the rest of the world woke up to a QR code because it was on your menu at a restaurant or on your table, right, as a menu. So I could go on forever about just being in touch with the world around you and trying to just learn from it. I always joke that we're doing all the things our parents told us never to do. We're getting into car with strangers. We're like renting strangers' houses and sleeping in strangers' beds and paying them for it, right? Like the world is just so unique. So you also have to be adaptable to change.
Well, there were a lot of really big takeaways just from that right there. But the biggest one for me was the validation of all the hours playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. So I just want to thank you so much for that right there, in addition to everything else that that you just mentioned.
Still one of the best games ever.
100%. 100%. So last time you were here, you gave us a couple of book recommendations. You told us Blitzscaling and Learning to Lead, and those were a couple of my COVID reads, and got a lot of value from them. But now that it's 5+ years later, curious if you have any new recommendations to share.
Oh, so many. Love reading, love Audible. I would say right now for the listeners, a great book is going to be The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's a great book. And then another book is Play Nice But Win. Those are two that I think if you couple these two with the two from 5 years ago that we talked about, that's a great little MBA program right there.
So I'd love to kind of dive into that just a little bit. Speaking about your process of learning, because you say you love to read and things like that, and I know people that have read books and quite frankly didn't get anything out of them. Nothing had changed in their behavior. So I'm curious how you take all of that information, digest it, and then apply the things that you think are the most important.
Yeah, I think I listen or read with an open mind on and try to really think about how these things can apply. I also, as I read, take notes. And so it allows me to really like synergize the books and things that I read into one area. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's so much great content from people who have truly been successful, not people who are popular, but have been who are successful. And so for me, it's also testing, right? Like not everything is applicable that you read in a great book to business. So what I always operate on is a minimum viable idea. So if I get something from a book, then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, let's test this a little bit. I'm not going to bet the farm on this idea from a book, but I will find an element or an aspect of it and integrate it in a minimal way so that if it doesn't work, then I can pull it out and course correct. But I'm not saying, oh my gosh, I read a great book. I'm now going to shift the entire company's core values, strategy around a book. So I think it's, laying a foundation first, having core values, knowing who your customer is, knowing who your user is, and then from there, it's really supplemental kind of additions to your business and how you do things, especially like in this environment with a new generation of worker, remote versus in office. I mean, things are different.
So another question, Michael. We're recording this on Zoom, which is one thing we are doing different now compared to last time you were here. We're now on video. We can see your face, and I'm looking in your background, and I see what looks like a couple of Monopoly board tiles, and I think I see the go to jail one in the corner, but I also see a success card as well, and it looks like there's one that's just slightly out of frame as well. Yeah. Curious if you can actually just tell us a little about those.
Yeah, so one of my favorite games as I got older and as an entrepreneur is Monopoly. And it's also a game that we implement or use as a metaphor in our business today. So what we tell franchisees is your market is your Monopoly board. And every day parents get up and they roll the dice and they say, where am I going to take my kids? Where are my kids going to land today? The kids are going to land somewhere on the board every day. The question is, where they land, do you own that youth enrichment concept? And so the goal of Unleashed Brands is to own the Monopoly board and help people move through that game and our franchisees. So yeah, I've got on where it looks like the jail sign, it says, rent is due. Success is never owned, only rented. And rent is due every day. And so I do believe that I get up every day knowing that I got another day to earn. What I did is in the past, and I've got to go and earn it today. And then I've got a success sign that says the price of entry for success is hustle, execution, discipline, ambition, sacrifice, patience, focus, and failure. You can't have success without a little bit of all that. Here, there's one that says no risk, no reward. You have to pay to play. And then over here, there's one that says persistence. Don't give up, keep going. So it's just a little reminder that just because you won the game yesterday doesn't mean that you'll win the game tomorrow. Every day you got to get up and you gotta play nice but win.
Love that. Love that. So we'll get a little granular in Monopoly. I always love to be that little car. What was your favorite figure?
For some reason, I always gravitated to the thimble. Is that the thing you could? I don't know why. Like I've just got to be truthful. I'm on a podcast.
So Michael, we have a few minutes left here as we start to wind down here, but looking back to the last time you were on the show, it was episode 91. This is now episode 365, which means if we continue at this pace, we're going to have you back on the podcast in a little over 5 years. It's going to be episode 639, and it's going to air on December 4th, 2029. You shared a lot of new stuff with us in this interview. This felt like a completely different story altogether. What do you think you'll be telling us then?
I think we'll be talking about how our mission is still to get up every day to impact the lives of every kid by helping them learn, play, and grow. I think the mission's not going to change. Our calling's not going to change. I think we'll be talking about having, 20 plus companies in the platform, not 7. I think we'll talk about serving, almost every kid in America and, but by 2029, whether we'll be a public or private company, I think still to be debated, but we might be able to talk about a stock exchange ticker. I think that we'll be a lot bigger. We have 2,200 locations across the country right now, but by that time, I bet we're over 5,000. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I won't have gray hair by then. I keep, I'm not sure. We'll see. But good years ahead.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Always so inspirational to talk to you, Michael. I love hearing your stories and how you approach business. If somebody wanted to learn more about you or learn more about Unleashed Brands, where would you send them?
Yeah, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Love connecting with people. But also unleashbrands.com is the place to learn about the team, positions we have available, brands we have available. That'd be the best spot.
Excellent. Well, Michael, this has just been such an amazing and inspirational conversation, and learned so much. And like Matt said, it's just always great to be able to catch up. So maybe it'll be less than 5 years before we have you back on the podcast. But regardless, we always enjoy the time together. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all Attraction Pros.